The first time, Elena Rodriguez truly understood the meaning of destiny. She was 12 years old, standing in her father's garage on a sweltering California afternoon. Sunlight filtered through dusty windows, casting long shadows across half-dismantled engines and rows of meticulously organized tools. Her father, Marco Rodriguez, a second-generation Mexican-American mechanic, was teaching her something far more profound than just how engines worked. "See this, Mia?" Marco's weathered hands traced the intricate internal workings of a diesel engine. "Every machine has a story. Every piece has a purpose. The magic isn't just in how it looks, but in how it performs when everything else falls apart." Elena watched, mesmerized. Her mother, Sarah, a high school history teacher, always joked that their daughter was born with motor oil in her veins and determination in her heart. While other girls her age were chasing teenage dreams, Elena was learning the language of machines, a dialect of precision, resilience, and unbridled potential. The military base near their home in San Diego became her first real classroom of dreams. Every weekend, she would convince her parents to drive near the perimeter of Miramar Naval Air Station, watching FA-18 Hornets slice through the sky like silver daggers. Her journal, hidden beneath her bed, was filled with intricate drawings of aircraft, mathematical calculations of flight trajectories, and notes about aerial combat strategies. Her high school guidance counselor had looked at her with a mixture of skepticism and mild amusement when she declared her intention to become a military pilot. "The odds are against you," Mrs. Thompson had said, her glasses sliding down her nose. "Especially for a young Latina from a working-class background." Elena remembered, smiling. Obstacles were just another type of engine, waiting to be understood and conquered. The path wasn't easy. College was a maze of student loans, late-night study sessions, and multiple part-time jobs, while her classmates were exploring typical college experiences. Elena was taking advanced mathematics, studying aerodynamics, and participating in ROTC programs. Her roommates would find her asleep at her desk, surrounded by technical manuals and complex engineering diagrams. Her breakthrough came during a summer internship at a defense contractor, where she impressed senior engineers with her intuitive understanding of complex mechanical systems. It wasn't just about memorizing specifications. Elena could visualize how different components would interact under extreme conditions. The military recruitment process was brutal. Physical tests that pushed human endurance to its limits. Psychological evaluations that probed the deepest recesses of her mental fortitude. Written exams that demanded not just knowledge, but the ability to make split-second decisions under immense pressure. When she was selected for pilot training, it felt less like a personal achievement and more like the fulfillment of a promise made in that dusty garage years ago, when her father had taught her that true potential isn't inherited, but engineered. Flight school at Pensacola was a crucible. Out of her initial class of 120 candidates, only 20 would ultimately become combat pilots. The attrition rate was designed to be merciless, weeding out anyone lacking the perfect combination of technical skill, psychological stability, and raw courage. Elena wasn't just competing against others. She was competing against herself. Every simulation, every training exercise was an opportunity to deconstruct her own limitations. Her instructors quickly recognized that she wasn't just learning to fly. She was learning to transform an aircraft into an extension of human will. The A-10 Thunderbolt II became more than just an assignment. It became her calling. While other pilots were drawn to sleek, fast fighter jets, Elena was captivated by the Warthog's brutal functionality. A flying artillery piece designed for close ground support, the A-10 was the infantry's guardian angel, tough, reliable, unapologetically effective. Her call sign, Banshee, wasn't just a random assignment. It was earned during a particularly challenging night training exercise, where she navigated through impossible conditions. her intuition and skill becoming legendary among her peers. Like the mythical Irish spirit that warned of impending death, Elena's approach to missions promised inevitable judgment for those who threatened her team. Years of training, countless simulations, and multiple deployments had transformed her from a dreamer in a California garage to one of the most respected, a 10 pilots in the United States Air Force. But this mission, the one that would soon unfold in the unforgiving mountain terrain, would be different. This was the moment where years of preparation would be distilled into pure, professional execution. As she ran her pre-flight checklist that morning, Elena thought about her father, about the lessons learned in that garage, about the idea that every machine, every mission tells a story if you know how to listen. The mountains were waiting, and she was ready to write her chapter. The intelligence briefing room was a cathedral of controlled chaos. Maps, digital displays, and classified documents created a mosaic of impending conflict that would determine the fate of multiple nations. Team leader Michael Rodriguez, no relation to Elena, but sharing the same last name by cosmic coincidence, stood at the center of this intelligence hurricane. 38 years old, with skin weathered by countless deployments and eyes that had witnessed humanity's darkest moments, Michael was the kind of SEAL that Pentagon strategists spoke about in hushed, reverent tones. His team wasn't just a military unit. They were a precision instrument of national security, crafted through years of brutal training and real-world experience. The target was a terrorist leadership hub buried deep in a mountainous region that had defeated previous reconnaissance attempts. Satellite imagery suggested an underground complex nestled within a network of caves and reinforced structures, protected by terrain that had historically swallowed military operations whole. "We're not just talking about a simple strike," Colonel James Hartley explained, his laser pointer dancing across the topographical map. "This is a multi-layered objective. Intelligence suggests we have a convergence of leadership from 3 major terrorist networks. Taking this out isn't just a tactical win, it's a strategic game-changer." Michael studied the details with a surgeon's precision. Each contour line, each potential approach vector was memorized, internalized. His team of 6 operators represented the pinnacle of special operations training. There was Rodriguez explosives and demolitions expert, Chun, their communications specialist, Martinez, the team's medical professional and backup sniper, Thompson, their close-quarters combat specialist, Williams, their intelligence and tech guru, and Jackson, their navigation and terrain expert. They weren't just soldiers. They were a living, breathing system, each member's strengths complementing the other's potential vulnerabilities. Years of joint training had transformed them from individual operators into a single, sophisticated operational organism. The mission parameters were complex: minimal collateral damage, maximum target elimination, potential intelligence capture, extraction under potentially extreme conditions. And most critically, they needed air support that could provide precision beyond conventional understanding. That's where Captain Elena Rodriguez and her A-10 Thunderbolt II would enter the equation. Their pre-mission preparation was a ballet of technological sophistication and human intuition. Advanced satellite reconnaissance, signals intelligence, human asset reports. Every piece of information was cross-referenced, analyzed, and synthesized into a mission profile that left nothing to chance. "The terrain is our biggest enemy," Williams explained, bringing up a 3D holographic representation of the mountain region. "We're looking at elevation changes, potential rock slides, thermal imaging challenges, communication dead zones. This isn't just a mission. It's a chess match against geography itself." Michael understood the stakes better than anyone. 3 previous attempts to infiltrate this region had ended in catastrophic failure. Entire teams had disappeared, swallowed by the mountain's unforgiving landscape. This mission wasn't just about eliminating a terrorist leadership hub. It was about proving that human determination could overcome seemingly insurmountable challenges. The equipment selection was meticulous. Lightweight, high-tensile body armor. Advanced communication systems with multiple redundancies. Specialized climbing gear designed for extreme alpine conditions. Weapons that could perform in sub-zero temperatures and high-altitude environments. Each team member's kit was customized, balanced between mission-specific requirements and individual operational preferences. Rodriguez's explosives were precisely calculated enough to breach fortified positions without causing unnecessary structural damage. Chun's communication equipment could potentially penetrate the most challenging electromagnetic environments. As the final briefing concluded, a sense of controlled anticipation filled the room. These weren't men preparing for a typical military operation. They were architects of a mission that could potentially reshape geopolitical landscapes. Michael looked at his team. No grand speeches. No Hollywood-style motivational rhetoric. Just a subtle nod that communicated everything: trust, preparation, and an unspoken commitment that transcended mere professional obligation. Outside the briefing room, the early morning light was just beginning to break. Another day was about to be transformed into a moment of historic significance. The mountain was waiting, and they were ready to answer its challenge. Darkness was a living entity in these mountains. Not the absence of light, but a tangible presence that wrapped around rock formations like a predatory skin. The CH-47 Chinook helicopter moved through this darkness with a calculated stealth that defied its massive size, a ghost carrying 6 of the most lethal operators on the planet. Michael Rodriguez checked his equipment for the 3rd time, not out of nervousness, but out of a professional's instinct that bordered on ritual. Each piece of gear was an extension of his body, the night vision goggles calibrated to capture the most minute heat signatures, the custom-modified Scar-H rifle that could deliver precision strikes at ranges most weapons could only dream of, the communication gear that could whisper across electromagnetic spectrums. The mountain range they were entering was a geological nightmare. The Hindu Kush region that had swallowed empires, defeated military campaigns, and turned strategic objectives into historical footnotes of failure. These weren't just mountains. They were living fortresses that had been defending themselves for millennia. 30 minutes to drop point. The Chinook's pilot's voice crackled through their encrypted communication system. Chun, the team's communication specialist, ran a quick diagnostic. Multiple redundant channels. Encrypted frequency hopping. Satellite backup. They were creating a communication network that could survive where traditional systems would collapse. Rodriguez reflected on the intelligence they'd gathered. Months of preparation had distilled into this moment. Satellite imagery, signals intelligence, human asset reports, all converging on this single geographical point. Their target wasn't just a location. It was a nexus of terrorist leadership, a hub that had been orchestrating operations across multiple continents. The team's descent would be anything but conventional. They weren't planning a traditional insertion. This was a high-altitude infiltration that would test the limits of human endurance and technical capability. Their insertion point was a razor-thin ridge that most reconnaissance would consider impossible to access. Martinez, their medical specialist, ran a final check on the team's physiological monitors. High-altitude insertion carried its own unique risks. Oxygen levels, body temperature, stress indicators, every vital sign was being tracked with medical precision. One miscalculation could turn this mission from a strategic success to a catastrophic failure. Thompson, their close-quarters combat specialist, reviewed the potential engagement scenarios. Multiple contingency plans were mapped out, each with precise decision trees that anticipated potential enemy responses. They weren't just preparing for a fight. They were preparing to control the very narrative of the engagement. The moment jump approached, Williams, their intelligence specialist, made final adjustments to their electronic warfare suite. Sophisticated jamming equipment would create a technological bubble around their insertion, rendering them virtually invisible to local electronic surveillance. Approaching drop zone, the pilot's voice was calm, professional. Michael's voice came through their internal comm system. No unnecessary words. Just pure, distilled instruction. Prepare for halo insertion. Full stealth protocol. Halo high altitude, low opening. A technique that would see them jumping from nearly 30,000 feet, free-falling through the thin mountain air before deploying parachutes at an almost impossibly low altitude. It was a method that transformed human beings into living, breathing, precision instruments. The cargo door opened. Mountain winds screamed a welcome that felt more like a challenge. They would become ghosts, dropping through darkness, transforming from human beings into a precision weapon system that could penetrate the most defended location on the planet. Each team member understood the mission parameters. Eliminate the terrorist leadership hub, capture critical intelligence, minimize collateral damage, ensure team survival. Simple. Impossible. The first operator stepped to the edge. Then another. Then another. The mountain waited, indifferent, ancient, unimpressed by human ambition. But they were coming. And nothing, not terrain, not technology, not human resistance, would stop them. As they dropped into the consuming darkness, Captain Elena Rodriguez was already moving into position. Her A-10 Thunderbolt II, nicknamed Silent Judgment, would be their unseen guardian. A technological angel of vengeance, waiting to unleash precision from the sky. The mission had begun. The mountain breathed, not with wind, but with a tension that seemed to pulse through its rocky veins. Michael Rodriguez felt it in every fiber of his being as the team touched down on a razor-thin ridge that would have been invisible to any conventional reconnaissance. Their landing was silent, impossibly so. Custom-designed parachutes, developed by a black-budget military research program, allowed them to descend with a stealth that defied conventional physics. Specialized fabric engineered to disperse heat. Signatures minimize electromagnetic emissions and reduce wind resistance, transform them from human beings into something closer to living shadows. Chun was the first to establish their communication network. His fingers moved across a custom-built communication array that looked more like an advanced piece of scientific equipment than standard military gear. Multiple satellite links, quantum, encryption protocols, and adaptive frequency modulation created a communication bubble that could penetrate the most challenging electromagnetic environments. Network established, Shin whispered, his voice barely a breath. We're ghost walking. The terrain was a geological nightmare. Razor-sharp rock formations created natural fortifications that would have stopped conventional military approaches cold. But this wasn't a conventional team. Each member moved with a precision that suggested they were more machine than human, each step calculated. Each movement, a deliberate mathematical equation of balance and minimal energy expenditure. Williams began deploying micro-drones, each no larger than a sparrow, equipped with advanced thermal and electromagnetic sensing capabilities. These weren't just reconnaissance tools. They were an extended sensory network that would map the complex terrain in real time, providing a level of situational awareness that bordered on precognition. 30 meters below their position, the first signs of the target complex began to emerge, not through visual confirmation, but through the sophisticated sensor array that was now painting a three-dimensional picture of the underground facility. Preliminary scans confirm. Williams' voice was clinical, detached. Multiple underground chambers. Estimated depth between 40 to 60 meters. Reinforced concrete. Potential electromagnetic shielding. Michael's mind was already running through potential breach scenarios. Each potential entry point was being analyzed in real-time structural integrity, potential defensive positions, likelihood of detection. High above, Captain Elena Rodriguez was becoming an extension of her aircraft. The A-10 Thunderbolt II wasn't just a machine. It was a living, breathing weapon system that responded to her slightest input with quantum-level precision. Her heads-up display was a symphony of data, thermal imaging, electromagnetic signatures, terrain mapping, wind resistance calculations, potential weapon deployment scenarios. Each piece of information was processed instantaneously, creating a holographic representation of the operational environment that went beyond what human eyes could comprehend. The GAU-8 Avenger cannon, a weapon so powerful it was essentially a flying gun rather than a gun with wings, was calibrated and ready. But Elena wasn't just preparing for destruction. She was preparing for surgical precision that would minimize collateral damage while maximizing operational effectiveness. On the ground, Martinez was running continuous physiological monitoring of the team, heart rates, oxygen levels, stress indicators, micro changes in body chemistry that could indicate potential medical risks. He wasn't just a medic. He was a real-time human performance analyst. Thompson began preparing breach equipment, specialized shaped charges designed to cut through reinforced concrete with minimal explosive dispersal. These weren't standard military explosives. They were precision instruments of structural deconstruction. Rodriguez looked at his team. No words were necessary. A subtle hand gesture, a micro-expression. Years of joint training had transformed them into a living, breathing operational system where communication transcended traditional language. The mountain waited. The terrorist complex sat silent, unaware of the technological hurricane about to descend upon it. This wasn't just a mission. This was the culmination of years of technological development, human training, and strategic preparation. Somewhere between human capability and technological marvel, they existed neither fully human nor fully machine. Perfect instruments of a complex modern warfare that existed in the shadows between what was possible and what was imagined. The first phase of the operation was about to begin. Time became a different entity. Not linear, but a complex web of potential outcomes and split-second decisions. The first breach was more science than violence. Thompson's specialized shaped charges cut through the reinforced concrete with a precision that bordered on surgical. No explosive roar. Just a calculated deconstruction that created an entry point measuring exactly 1.2 meters wide, just enough for human passage without unnecessary structural damage. Breach confirmed. Chin's voice was a whisper across their encrypted network. No external alarm triggers detected. Michael Rodriguez moved first. Not with the dramatized approach of Hollywood action sequences, but with a calculated fluidity that suggested decades of muscle memory. Each step was a mathematical equation weight. Distribution, potential noise generation, angle of approach, potential cover positions. The underground complex was a labyrinth of technological sophistication. Advanced communication infrastructure suggested this wasn't just a terrorist hideout. This was a strategic command center that had been orchestrating operations across multiple continents. Williams' augmented reality display began painting the environment in layers of tactical information. Heat signatures, potential electronic signatures, structural vulnerabilities, communication nodes. Each piece of data was processed in microseconds, creating a living, breathing map of their environment. High above, Captain Elena Rodriguez was becoming one with her aircraft. The A-10 Thunderbolt II wasn't just a weapon. It was an extension of her consciousness. Her heads-up display showed multiple potential engagement scenarios, each calculated with quantum-level precision. Overwatch in position, Her voice was calm, professional, a technological angel waiting to deliver judgment. The first contact wasn't what anyone expected. Not a firefight, not an explosion, but a moment of technological warfare that would redefine modern combat. Chun's advanced electronic warfare suite began its silent attack, not destroying communication systems, but something far more sophisticated, subtle manipulation, inserting false communication packets, creating digital confusion that would render the terrorist leadership's communication infrastructure useless. Martinez moved with a medical professional's precision, identifying potential medical intelligence targets. Not just elimination, but potential capture. Each movement was calculated to preserve potential human intelligence assets. Thompson handled potential direct engagement scenarios. His close-quarters combat training wasn't just about violence. It was about control, minimizing casualties, maximizing operational effectiveness. Rodriguez, the team leader, was the living brain of this operational organism. Each team member's action was a neural impulse in a larger, more complex system. The terrorist leadership never saw them coming. Their sophisticated defense systems, built to repel conventional military approaches, were useless against this level of technological precision. LNZ-10 became a silent guardian, not just providing air support, but creating a technological umbrella that would prevent any potential external intervention. Her GAU-8 Avenger cannon was calibrated, ready, but not as a weapon of first resort, a final option, a technological last resort. Underground, the team moved like liquid mercury. No wasted movement, no unnecessary violence. Pure, calculated efficiency. Their objective wasn't just elimination. It was strategic disruption, destroying a network's leadership while preserving critical intelligence infrastructure. Williams began extracting digital intelligence, not just files, but entire communication networks, encryption keys, operational plans. A digital harvest that would provide months, potentially years of strategic intelligence. The mountain seemed to hold its breath. In less than 17 minutes, they would transform a terrorist leadership hub from an operational center to a neutralized geographical point. 17 minutes that would reshape global security landscapes. 17 minutes that represented years of human training, technological development, and strategic preparation. 17 minutes where human potential would transcend conventional understanding of military operations. The moment of convergence had arrived. Technology, human, skill, strategic vision, becoming something greater than the sum of their parts. The underground complex was a technological ecosystem more sophisticated than most national intelligence headquarters. Williams moved with a surgeon's precision, his fingers dancing across multiple encrypted data extraction devices that looked more like advanced scientific instruments than standard military gear. "We're not just collecting data," Williams muttered, more to himself than to the team. "We're dismantling an entire global communication network." Each server, each communication node, was a potential goldmine of strategic intelligence. This wasn't about simple data collection. This was about understanding the intricate web of global terrorist operations, tracing communication lines, identifying support networks, uncovering funding mechanisms that stretched across continents. Chun's electronic warfare suite was working its most sophisticated magic, not just extracting data, but creating a complex digital forensic landscape that would allow intelligence agencies to reconstruct the entire operational network. Encryption. Keys were being copied, communication patterns analyzed, hidden communication channels mapped with microscopic precision. Michael Rodriguez understood the true value of this moment. Military operations weren't won with bullets anymore. They were won with information, with the ability to understand and predict an adversary's next move before they even conceived it. Potential secondary targets identified, Chun's voice was. Clinical. Communication nodes in at least 3 additional countries. Preliminary analysis suggests a networked operation far more complex than initial intelligence suggested. Martinez was simultaneously collecting potential biological intelligence. DNA samples. Medical records recovered from the facility. Each piece of information was a potential thread in a larger investigative tapestry. High above, Captain Elena Rodriguez maintained her overwatch. The A-10 Thunderbolt II wasn't just a weapon platform. It was a comprehensive sensor array that could detect the slightest changes in the operational environment, thermal signatures, electromagnetic emissions, potential reinforcement routes. Thompson moved through the facility with a close-quarters specialist's intuition. Not just clearing rooms, but understanding the architectural psychology of the space. How was this facility designed? What did its layout reveal about the operational mindset of its inhabitants? The first wave of extracted intelligence was already being compressed and encrypted. Quantum-level encryption protocols would ensure that even if the data was intercepted, it would remain incomprehensible to anyone without the most advanced decryption capabilities. "We're looking at more than just a terrorist hub," Williams announced, his voice carrying a mix of professional detachment and genuine intellectual excitement. "This is a global communication nexus. Potential links to state-sponsored activities in at least 2 regions we didn't anticipate." Rodriguez processed the information with the calm of a chess grandmaster. Each piece of intelligence wasn't just data. It was a potential strategic lever that could reshape geopolitical landscapes. The mountain seemed to hold its breath. An entire terrorist infrastructure was being systematically dismantled not through overwhelming force, but through technological precision and intellectual superiority. Chun continued his digital harvest. Communication logs, encrypted messages, financial transaction records. Each file was a window into a complex global network that had been operating in the shadows. Potential leadership movement patterns identified, Chun reported. "We're not just neutralizing a current threat. We're providing predictive intelligence for future interdiction operations." Martinez completed his biological intelligence collection. Potential medical records, DNA samples, trace evidence that could provide insights into the human infrastructure supporting these operations. Thompson finished his physical sweep. Weapons caches documented, structural vulnerabilities mapped, potential future infiltration routes analyzed. 17 minutes of operational time was transforming into potentially years of strategic intelligence. The team moved with a synchronized efficiency that suggested they were less a group of individuals and more a living, breathing operational system. Each member's specialized skills complementing the others, creating something far greater than traditional military units. Elena Rodriguez maintained her aerial vigil. The A-10 Thunderbolt II, a technological marvel that represented the pinnacle of American military engineering, became a silent guardian, ensuring no external interference could compromise the mission. As the digital harvest concluded, Michael Rodriguez knew they had done more than complete a mission. They had rewritten the rules of modern warfare: intelligence, precision, technological superiority. The new battlefield was no longer defined by physical geography. It existed in the complex networks of global communication, and they had just claimed total victory. Extraction was always the most dangerous phase of any special operations mission, not because of external threats, but because of the complex variables that could transform success into catastrophe in a millisecond. Michael Rodriguez understood this with a visceral clarity that went beyond tactical training. Years of operational experience had taught him that missions were won or lost in these final moments when victory seemed certain, but potential failure lurked in the smallest miscalculation. Chun began initiating their extraction protocols. It wasn't a simple escape. It was a meticulously choreographed digital vanishing act. Communication systems would be systematically dismantled. Electronic signatures would be carefully masked. They would become ghosts, leaving behind nothing but carefully constructed misdirection. Digital footprint neutralization commencing. Qian's voice was calm, professional. Each keystroke was a calculated move in a complex technological chess. Match. Williams was already compressing and encrypting the intelligence they'd gathered. Quantum-level encryption protocols transformed terabytes of critical data into virtually uncrackable digital packages. These weren't just files. They were potential geopolitical game-changers that could reshape international security landscapes. Martinez completed his final medical sweep. Biological samples secured, trace evidence collected, each item meticulously documented and preserved for future analysis. His medical kit was more sophisticated and most advanced. Research laboratories a testament to the evolution of modern special operations medicine. Thompson managed the physical extraction route, not just choosing a path, but actively engineering their escape. Portable ground-penetrating radar mapped potential pursuit routes. Electronic countermeasures created a technological bubble that would mask their movement. High above, Captain Elena Rodriguez maintained her overwatch. The A-10 Thunderbolt II wasn't just providing air cover. It was a comprehensive sensor platform that could detect the slightest change in the operational environment. Extraction corridor is clear. Elena's voice crackled through their encrypted communication network. No significant thermal or electromagnetic signatures detected. The mountains seemed to conspire with them. Rock formations provided natural cover. Terrain that had defeated previous military operations now became their silent ally. Their extraction wasn't just about leaving. It was about leaving no trace, no evidence, no indication that they had ever been present. Chun's electronic warfare suite continued its sophisticated dance. False communication signatures would be planted. Potential pursuit vectors would be deliberately misdirected. They were creating a complex digital smokescreen that would confuse any potential counterintelligence efforts. Secondary communication nodes activated, Sean reported, creating multiple false extraction scenarios. Michael Rodriguez moved with a fluid precision that suggested decades of muscle memory. Each step was a calculated mathematical equation: weight, distribution, potential noise generation, angle of approach. Martinez continued monitoring the team's physiological conditions. High-altitude extraction carried unique medical challenges. Oxygen levels, stress indicators, micro-changes in body chemistry that could indicate potential medical risks. The first extraction phase would be the most critical. A helicopter extraction was too risky, too conventional. They would use a combination of specialized high-altitude climbing techniques and precision ground movement. Williams continued his digital harvest. Even during extraction, he was analyzing the intelligence they'd gathered. Potential communication patterns, encrypted message structures, financial transaction, trails. Preliminary analysis confirms, Williams muttered. We've just dismantled a global communication network more sophisticated than most national intelligence agencies. Thompson managed their physical movement with a close-quarter specialists. Intuition. Potential ambush points were identified and avoided. Natural terrain features were used for concealment and rapid movement. The mountains seemed to breathe with them. A silent witness to an operation that would remain classified for decades. Elena Rodriguez maintained her aerial guardian status. The A-10 Thunderbolt II-A, technological marvel that represented the pinnacle of American military engineering, became their unseen protector. As they moved, the underground complex behind them remained unchanged. To any external observer, Nothing would suggest the extraordinary technological and human operation that had just transpired. 17 minutes of operational time. Years of strategic intelligence gathered. A global terrorist network systematically neutralized. The true measure of their success would not be immediate. It would be revealed in the months and years to come, as intelligence agencies began to unravel the complex network they had just dismantled. They were more than a team. They were a living, breathing instrument of national security, vanishing into the mountain's embrace. 37 days after the mountain operation, the true impact began to crystallize in classified briefing rooms across multiple continents. The intelligence gathered during those 17 minutes would reshape global security landscapes in ways no one could have immediately anticipated. What had seemed like a targeted strike was now understood as the surgical dismantling of a complex, multinational terrorist network that had been operating with near total impunity. Captain Elena Rodriguez sat in a nondescript conference room at Peterson Air Force Base. Her A-10 Thunderbolt II maintenance reports spread before her. The debriefing wasn't just about the mission. It was about understanding the intricate tapestry of modern technological warfare. We didn't just neutralize a threat, Dr. Elizabeth Harmon, the senior intelligence analyst, explained to a room of senior military and intelligence officials. We exposed an entire communication infrastructure that connects terrorist operations across at least 7 countries. The classified report was a masterpiece of strategic intelligence. Encrypted communication networks mapped, funding channels disrupted, leadership structures completely exposed. Each piece of intelligence was a precision instrument that would allow targeted interdiction of global terrorist operations. Michael Rodriguez, no longer in tactical gear, but in a crisp military dress uniform, listened with the calm detachment of a professional who understood the true nature of their work. Success wasn't measured in dramatic explosions or Hollywood-style confrontations. It was measured in the quiet, systematic dismantling of complex operational networks. Chun, now consulting with advanced cybersecurity firms, had become the primary analyst of the digital intelligence they'd gathered. The communication patterns they'd uncovered were rewriting understanding of global terrorist communication strategies. It's not just about the data we collected, Sean explained during a subsequent briefing. It's about the metadata, the spaces between the communications, the patterns that reveal more than the actual content. Williams had been immediately seconded to a joint intelligence task force. The biological and technological intelligence they'd gathered was creating new methodologies for tracking and interdicting complex global networks. Martinez was developing new medical intelligence gathering protocols based on the samples collected during the mission. Each piece of trace evidence was a potential key to understanding the human infrastructure of global terrorist operations. Thompson had become a sought-after consultant, teaching advanced close-quarters operational techniques that went beyond traditional military training. Elena Rodriguez reflected on the mission. The A-10 Thunderbolt II her technological partner represented more than just a weapon platform. It was a sophisticated sensor array that had become an extension of human capability. The mountain where they had conducted their operation remained unchanged. No external signs betrayed the extraordinary technological and human operation that had transpired. To the casual observer, it was just another remote geographical point. But intelligence agencies around the world understood the significance. The operation had not just been a mission. It had been a paradigm shift in understanding modern global security. We're looking at a new model of warfare, Dr. Harmon continued in her briefing, not defined by physical confrontation, but by technological superiority, by the ability to understand and predict operational networks before they can act. Michael Rodriguez thought about his team. They weren't just operators. They were living proof of what happened when human potential was combined with technological innovation. The classified reports would never capture the true essence of what they had accomplished. The years of training, the split-second decisions, the technological sophistication that transformed them from individual operators to a living, breathing operational system. Elena's thoughts drifted to her father's garage, to the lessons about machines and purpose that he had taught her years ago, about understanding not just how something works, but how it can be transformed into something greater than its original design. The mountain held its secrets. The mission would remain classified for decades, but its impact would reshape global security in ways that would only become fully understood with time. They had done more than complete a mission. They had rewritten the rules of modern warfare. Technology, human potential, strategic vision, becoming something greater than the sum of their parts.